Hello, I'm Nikki.
And I'm Jess.
She's the traumatized.
And she's the abandoned. And welcome to our podcast,
where we talk about true crime, spooky things, and everything in between.
And today, we're going to be talking about some deadly engineering, which I'm really excited about. So how was your week?
I don't know.
Do you want to ask me first?
I don't really do anything. Oh, well, okay, so I unpacked a bit.
That's cool.
I got the guest room you guys will be staying in kind of unpacked. There's still junk on the floor that I have to find places for, but
right.
The air mattress is ready. I washed the sheets and blankets, so those are ready to be put on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I unpacked 2 of my boxes of clothes, so now I have more than like 10 shirts to rotate through.
That's exciting. I'm glad you have a reason for only rotating 10 shirts. I don't. So, sorry.
Well, also now, like, I have some of my nicer shirts unpacked, so now I'm not wearing, like, t-shirts during the podcast.
I mean, I have, like, a little frilly thing here, but it's
cute.
Basically a t-shirt. I'm so mad because I got this shirt on sale. It was, like, $5.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cute. I love the color. I wore it one motherfucking day, and they're like oil stains on it from somewhere. I have no idea where they came from. Then there's like 3 of them like right on my chest, and I'm like,
that sucks.
So this is going to be a streaming/podcast shirt, so you may see it around
a few times
because I really like it, and I can't wear it out now without looking like a slob. So
how was your week?
It was good. Work was crazy. I decided, because my birthday is Monday, and I decided yesterday, for some reason, I wanted to watch all of like the Annabelle and Conjuring movies in a row.
Yeah.
So, and then of course,
and guess who gets to go along on the journey?
I was like, hey, BFF Nikki,
tag along.
I know you're so busy, but do you wanna? Let's just say we got through the first 2. We got like 1 movie down and then half of the movie into the second one, and I stopped and saged my apartment. I was like, I'm a smudge real quick. Just because it's funny too, because I'm legitimately scared. Those movies actually like scare me. Meanwhile, somebody who doesn't want to watch them is like laughing through them. And I'm like, why are you laughing right now? I'm crying. I'm scared. And she's just straight up laughing.
Oh,
and I'm
my
like,
God. The part in what is it called? Annabelle Creation, where like the girl's on the bunk bed, and then she like looks down the crack between the bunk bed and the wall, and Annabelle's just laying there. I busted out laughing.
I'm like hiding behind my like blankets and fingers and my hoodie that I was wearing, and she's just like laughing, and I'm like, this is how we are.
It was so funny.
It's not funny.
It's so funny.
Anyways, that's basically what I did this week. So, do you want to know the fun fact of the day? It's more like a fun trivia question.
Okay.
There is only one letter that doesn't appear in any state name. Go.
Is it X?
Texas.
Shit. Okay, not X. Q.
It is Q.
Yes.
What's hilarious is the description of it is there's a Z in Arizona and an X in Texas. So those are your 2 first, but there's no Q in any of them. So that's your fun fact of the day. You can go quit somebody. So tell me about your deadly engineering. I'm so intrigued.
Okay, so I was watching the same show you were watching, but like nothing really interested me. But from a different YouTube channel called Fascinating Horror. It's amazing. Check it out. He does a lot of like disaster like things. And this story just stuck in my head. My story today, I'm going to talk about the Hyatt Regency Walkway collapse.
Mm-hmm.
The day is July 17th. The year is 1981. And the place is the Hyatt Regency Kansas City Hotel.
Oh, shit. Okay.
1,600 people gathered for a tea dance, not knowing that that day would be a day that would change many of their lives.
Oh, shit.
And for 114 people, it would be their last.
I've never heard about this. This is crazy. Okay.
So, now that I've set the scene, let's get into the hotel a little bit.
Okay.
The Hyatt Regency Hotel began construction in May of 1978. The Kansas City Star, which was a newspaper in Kansas City, Missouri, described like the national climate of the late 1970s as high unemployment, inflation, and double-digit interest rates, which added pressure on builders to win contracts and complete projects swiftly.
Is that what it is like now?
Yeah. Basically.
Okay. I was like, check, wait.
Check. There were numerous delays and setbacks, including the collapse of 2,700 square feet of the roof. So, like, while they were building, the roof collapsed, but they obviously fixed it. But with all that, the 40-story building, described as new, modern, slick, and impressive, opened its doors to the public July 1980.
Okay.
In the hotel lobby, the main attraction was a multi-story atrium spanned by elevated walkways suspended from the ceiling. So an atrium,
that's cool.
Yeah, the atrium is basically like an open entrance or like open roof. So like, it's just all open. The steel, glass, and concrete construction walkways connected the second, third, and fourth floors from north to south. Okay. Each walkway was about 37 meters or 121.4 feet long and weighed in at around 63,934 pounds each.
Okay. That's a lot.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was steel, glass, and concrete is what it was made out of. Concrete's heavy. The walkways were constructed in such a way that the fourth floor was above the second floor walkway and the third floor was offset. So,
ooh, okay.
It's like a kind of like a step thing. So now that I've set the scene of the hotel, I'm going to go back and tell you what happened on the day of July 17th, 1981. So, like I said, 1,600 people had gathered in the lobby of the hotel to watch and or participate in a tea dance. So, what is a tea dance? Because, like, I was confused. Like, what's a tea dance?
I would like to think that people are drinking tea with one hand and like holding the other person and dancing. That's what I'm.
Well, okay. A tea dance is also called the disastrous. And I hope I say that right in French, for dancing tea. It's a summer or autumn afternoon or early evening dance from like 4 to 7 p.m. Or like in England after like you would have tea time and then you would have like a little dance. But in the United States, since the late 20th century, the term has been brought in to refer to any casual afternoon dance event.
Okay.
The walkways offered a great location to watch from, so about 40 people were gathered on the second floor walkway, and roughly 20 people were on the fourth floor walkway. The weight from these people was too much for the walkways to withstand, causing the fourth floor to collapse onto the second floor, and then both fell to the lobby floor.
What happened to the third? Nobody was on the third?
Well, because it was offset. So the second floor, the third floor is over here.
Yeah.
And the fourth floor is above it. So it would just collapse straight down.
Okay.
So it didn't touch the third floor.
Okay. Were there people on the third one that saw this happening?
Probably. There were 1,600 people gathered for this
dance. That being that lucky. That is a 1 out of 3 shot of going down and just like seeing this happen. That's terrifying. Okay.
So 111 people died immediately. And 3 died later in the hospital, with around 216 people injured.
Yikes.
So now I'm going to kind of go into the rescue part of everything. As the dust settled, piles of steel, concrete, and glass encased many bodies. Rescue teams arrived at the Hyatt Regency Hotel and began a 14-hour rescue operation. The team was made up of members from the fire brigade, EMS units, and doctors from 5 local hospitals. The hotel forklift trucks and the fire department's powerful jacks were unable to move the debris. So, local companies were called and asked to help, and many responded to volunteer not only manpower, but hydraulic jacks, acetylene, torches, compressors, and generators to help in the aid. Large sections of collapsed walkways were so heavy that cranes were needed to move them.
All that concrete and
triage centers and morgues were quickly set up on the hotel's drive and lawn to help with the wounded and dead. Disclaimer, I'm not going to get too graphic, but I am going to describe some uncomfortable things. So if you want to skip ahead like a minute, go right ahead.
I'm so glad I just ate.
Fatally injured victims were given morphine to ease their pain. At times, rescuers were required to dismember bodies to reach other victims. And some survivors had to have limbs amputated so they could be extracted from the rubble.
Right. Okay.
The Lifeline helicopter pilot compared the carnage to the Vietnam War, but in greater numbers here.
Jesus, right? Ugh.
Unfortunately, the fallen walkways weren't the only issue. Somehow, the sprinkler systems were damaged and gushed water into the atrium. On top of that, the sprinklers were supplied from tanks rather than the city supply, so it was impossible to turn off.
Oh no.
Trapped victims faced the possibility of being drowned because the front doors were acting as a dam holding in the water.
It's like my 2 biggest fears, being crushed and being drowned. Okay, cool.
One survivor spent more than 9 hours pinned underneath the lower walkway with both legs dislocated and almost drowned from the water. Luckily, the fire chief, quick and thinking, ordered a bulldozer to break the doors, and he had them connect the broken pipes with a fire hose to prevent further flooding. To prevent fires, the power supply had to be cut, which added to the difficulty of the rescue, limiting visibility, along with obviously large amounts of airborne dust that came from the accident. So that's all the bad stuff out of the way. We're going to talk about how this happened.
Okay.
The collapse was totally unexpected. It was the deadliest non-deliberate structural collapse in U.S. history, and the deadliest structural collapse until the tragic events of the World Trade Center.
Jesus.
This was a brand new hotel, and the walkways themselves were certainly modern and visibly impressive, but their design was not particularly innovative or revolutionary.
Okay.
So, what happened? And why did it happen?
Right.
Ultimately, multiple factors led to this disaster.
They always do.
First, the walkways were under higher stress than usual that day because people were gathered on the walkways to watch the dance. Secondly, the structural design of the walkway was inadequate. The original plan called for 6 steel hanger rods to run directly from the second floor walkway to the ceiling for support. However, the steel manufacturing contractor objected to this design as it required a long portion of the rod to be threaded and therefore required non-standard parts, which...
So they cut corners.
Yes. This resulted in a significant change from the original design and dramatically decreased the load-bearing capacity of the walkways. The changes in question relate to the hanger rod connections. So the design changed from a 1-rod system to a 2-rod system, which doubled the load on the connector. Meaning, so one set of rods connected the 4th floor walkway to the ceiling. A separate and second set of rods then connected the 2nd floor walkway to the 4th floor walkway. The design change, though seemingly subtle, was enough to critically undermine the safety of the structures and would prove to be fatal. Because of this design, it required the 4th floor beams to support weight from both floors.
Right, so you'd have, like, I'm thinking instantly, if you're having the 2nd floor hooked up to the 4th floor, you need double the amount thingies connected to the ceiling. Okay. And I'm not even an engineer, guys. Come on, I knew that.
That night, the stress became too great, and the box beams split along the weld, and the nuts supporting them slipped through the gaps. Though, all that being said, the investigation uncovered that even if the original design had been implemented, the walkway would not have been able to hold the expected load, thereby failing to meet the requirements of the Kansas City Building Code. So either design, this probably would have happened. All in all, the investigation found that design changes, poor communication, poor or even no calculations in some cases, and general negligence all contributed to the collapse.
Jesus. Okay.
The aftermath. In the wake of the Walkway collapse, the owners of the Hyatt Regency Hotel paid over $140 million in damages to victims. The Missouri Board of Architects, professional engineers, and land surveyors convicted engineers employed by Jack D. Gillum and Associates, who had approved the final drawings, of gross negligence, misconduct, and unprofessional conduct in the practice of engineering.
Okay.
All of them lost their engineering licenses in Missouri and Texas, as well as their American Society of Civil Engineers memberships.
Okay.
Jack D. Gillum and Associates, for its part, lost its license to be an engineering firm. But Jack Gillum himself continued to take speaking engagements at engineering conferences so that others might learn from his mistakes.
Okay.
So
I respect that.
Yeah, he took this whole event and said, don't do it.
Learn from it, please. Yeah.
For the engineering profession, the Walkway collapse tragedy became a classic model in studying engineers' ethics and errors. The hotel itself did rebuild and still stands today, though it has changed names a few times throughout the years. Instead of suspended walkways, the lobby was rebuilt with a single crossing on the second floor supported by large pillows, resulting in a structurally sound construction.
Good.
The Hyatt Regency Walkway collapse remains one of the worst civil engineering disasters in U.S. history. It has been widely studied and remains a warning to all current and future engineers of the potential cost of cutting corners and not being thorough.
Yeah, don't cut corners, especially if you're building something like that. Oh my God, that's crazy.
And that's my story.
That was intense.
Oh
my God. See, I don't like walking over those suspended bridges. Like, people are like, oh, look, it's a swinging bridge. Look how cool it is. I'm like, nah, bitch. Nah. Especially the wooden ones. I know they're probably more structurally sound, but still, they're scary. Okay, everyone take a deep breath. Deep cleansing breath. Mine's just as bad.
Oh, God.
Mine, there's a lot of stupid in mine.
Oh, no.
I'm going to be telling you about the 2015 Tianjin explosion in Tianjin, China. It is like you were saying, we were watching Deadly Engineering, and I think the title was like Fireball from Hell.
Yeah. I don't like that. Okay.
No, it's not great. Okay, so on August 12th, 2015, a series of explosions at Port Tianjin in Tianjin, northern China, killed 173 people and injured hundreds of others. The explosion occurred at a container storage station. And while the site was an alleged licensed chemical storage area, the quantity of chemicals stored there, and very dangerous chemicals, was far in excess than what was allowed.
Oh, no.
So, some of these dangerous chemicals included potassium nitrate and sodium cyanide, which internationally are limited to 25 tons of storage, according to, like I said, the legislation. Like, it is an international, like, within a certain area, you can only hold 25 tons each.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. They were just storing just a little bit more than that. So there was at least 800 tons of sodium cyanide on that site and over 1,300 tons of potassium nitrate.
You said a little more. we need to redefine your definition of little.
So for all you math whizzes, that is about 52 times the allowed amount of potassium nitrate and 32 times of sodium cyanide. Just a little more.
Lord. Okay.
Teeny tiny more.
Okay.
Oh, P.S. There was also about 800 tons of ammonium nitrate stored at the site, which is used as a fertilizer, but it can also be used as an explosive. So all in all, at the site, there was something like 3,000 tons in total of hazardous and toxic chemicals.
Jesus. Okay.
So that's a lot.
Yeah, that's too much. Too much.
So I say all that to circle back around to August 12th. 2015. So around 11 p.m., a fire is reported in a warehouse in Tianjin. Witnesses started posting on social media. They're growing flames that were getting larger and larger by the second. Then at this point, they were almost towering over the city's coastline. Like they were high. It was a scary fire. So what do you do when there's a fire? You call the firefighters. So firefighters rush in, tackle the blaze at this port. So obviously it's a fire, so you're going to throw water on it, which is what anybody would assume you would throw on fire to put out a normal fire.
Oh no.
What they didn't realize is that there are chemicals stored, and these chemicals are going to react violently with this water. So when the water was added to douse the fire, it made this incident go from bad to really, really fucking bad. Since the chemicals present in the warehouse were combustible, when they came in contact with water, it set off an explosion. The first explosion happened 30 minutes after the fire was started, and 30 seconds after that, the main explosion happened. People described it like it felt like a bomb had gone off, even going as far to say that this is how they would imagine if a nuclear explosion would go off in their close vicinity. There were fireballs that went hundreds of meters into the air and could actually be seen from space.
What do you mean by fireballs? Like multiple fireballs?
Well, at least two, because there's two explosions.
Do you mean like the mushroom cloud thing? Or yeah. Okay. I'm like imagining like ball of fire.
So just after 11:30 p.m., both explosions were registered as seismic activity by China's National Seismic Network. The first blast was equivalent to detonating 3 tons of TNT and registered as a magnitude 2.1 earthquake, and the second was equivalent to detonating 21 tons of the explosive and was registered as a 2.9 earthquake. In homes several miles away, windows were shattered and doors were torn off their hinges. Literally, like the shock of the initial explosions, like blew doors off several miles away.
Wow.
Obviously, so many people were injured, either by flying debris, flames, or by the release of the toxic chemicals that are now in the air. One of the biggest tragic parts of the story is that most of the people who were killed in this accident
were the firefighters,
police officers, and first responders who were running towards the danger to try to save others. And then the explosion happened. So the official total for the initial blast was 165. However, there were several people missing in the immediate aftermath. I believe I started this by saying they eventually got to 175. However, there's still missing bodies. It is unclear if they were ever recovered. So the actual total is not really known. There was a massive crater where the explosions had taken place. All the neighboring residential high-rises had their windows blown out, along with other damage to the buildings. So there were a car lot of brand new cars that were all scorched and destroyed.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It was bad. It was very bad. And while the initial impact was extremely devastating, obviously, the long-lasting effects were still to come. There were so many poisonous chemicals dumped into the air that no one knew what fumes they were breathing in. So the government ended up ordering the evacuation of everyone within 3 kilometers of the explosion site while the cleanup could take place. A cleanup of chemicals is very intense and difficult. So the cleanup was massively complicated by the illegal storage of very dangerous chemicals, in particular the sodium cyanide. So fun fact, when sodium cyanide is burned or it gets dissolved in water, it forms hydrogen cyanide, which is extremely toxic. And so you can ascertain that it is very dangerous to the environment. So usually you want to try to contain any water that might have been contaminated. So if it rains after the incident, you have to like band it off to make sure it can't get to the water in the sea.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Any contaminated soil has to be removed and treated to make sure any residue is removed. This process could take years. It is to note that the toxic chemicals that wreaked havoc were being stored for a reason.
Okay, what's that reason?
So for a long time now, China has been amassing big gold supplies and mining a lot of gold. Do you know what is used in the extraction of gold?
I'm assuming these very toxic chemicals.
Sodium cyanide.
Interesting.
Which means it's also a very valuable chemical, which is why they had so much of it stored. Ammonium nitrate, which is another chemical they had, is very important because it is used as the fertilizer. So that is the fertilizer. However, it is super explosive. So it is also used for quarrying and mining. So along with the blatant disregard for the regulations on the amounts of the chemicals, there also needed to be a 1 kilometer exclusion zone around each individual chemical. Surprise, they didn't adhere to that one either.
Clearly.
They were literally stored like right beside each other. And to top it all off, their license to store these chemicals expired in October of 2014.
And when did this happen? In
2015,
like a year later?
15. So they were storing these highly illegal amounts of chemicals illegally close together, illegally, because they didn't have a license.
That's a lot of illegalies.
But I'm gonna need you to buckle up now.
Well, we weren't buckled already?
No, you're gonna need to buckle up now.
Okay.
So it is known in the chemical storage world, which I am no expert. Like, thank God for this TV show because I learned a lot. You can't store acids next to alkalines or flammable things near explosives. I kind of knew that one. And these certain standards are literally followed internationally. Like, these are just known facts for people who store dangerous chemicals. So the initial fire was started because of an auto ignition with nitrocellulose that was stored on the site. So we're going to explain what nitrocellulose is.
Okay.
It is usually stored wet, submerged in either water or alcohol to prevent exposure to anything that could cause it to ignite. So the nitrocellulose was allowed to dry out, and once it dried out, it started its normal decomposition process. It builds up heat, and then when it reached 338 degrees, it auto-ignited. And then enter in the firefighters, who were completely unaware of the hazardous materials around them, try to put out the fire with water, covering the surrounding area with large amounts of water to extinguish and prevent the further spread of the fire. And then, of course, some of the chemicals that were stored there, in particular, the calcium carbonate, would react extremely badly to having the water dumped on it. And then things blew up. So
this separate chemical was stored near the other two, and then it caught fire and then spread?
Yeah, so basically the nitrocellulose, when it starts to decompose, it heats up.
Right.
So it continuously builds up heat, and once it builds up heat to a certain amount, it auto-ignited. So once it auto-ignited, it heated up all the other ones around it, and they ignited. So like everything is literally just starting to catch fire, along with the other chemicals that were in the storage container. They were also flammable, so those started to catch fire. But the actual explosion happened when the firefighters went to put out a chemical fire with water.
Because they didn't know it was a chemical fire.
And that's like one of the really big issues.
Mm-hmm.
The firefighters had no idea what was stored on this site, which goes against, weirdly, as the theme of the day, goes against all protocols. If there's a chemical storage, the neighboring, I think it's like the neighboring like city or whatever, at least in the United States, everyone knows, not everyone, I don't know, but like the
people in
city proper, like would know what was being stored there. So if firefighters or police officers or any first responders were called to an area, they would know. Mm-hmm. Or they would have protocols to notify people of that. And that was not a thing either. So basically, instead of trying to smother the fire with water, it caused a chemical reaction. Now, I don't know if you remember this from chemistry in high school, but I didn't. But when a chemical reaction happens, it produces a lot of heat. In this case, it also produced acetylene, which is a very explosive gas, and that's what led to the explosion. The acetylene then caught fire, and my additional fun fact was, did you know that blowtorches use acetylene gas?
Yeah, we do.
Because now you do. This isn't funny. I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. I think I've said this before. But anyways, so following the explosions, people demanded answers. They were asking a lot of what if questions. Like, someone should have known that the hazardous materials were being stored there. And if they had these protocols, if they had known, it would have saved so many lives if the fire had just been put out in a proper manner. So over a year later, China sentenced 49 people for their involvement in these explosions. And this went deeper, like the owners, because obviously they're using it for gold mining.
Right.
So the owners of this containment area, they like had some political people in their pocket. So that explains why, first of all, they were licensed at one point, but why they were able to be licensed with all of these chemicals in here with the quantities, and then why they never had to renew their license.
Also probably prevented from inspections taking place.
Exactly. So yeah, 49 people were sentenced for their involvement.
Wow.
They ranged depending on the varying levels of responsibility, but the harshest sentence was a death sentence for the owner of the facility.
Wow.
And this was due to the fact that he was storing deadly chemicals so close to residential buildings.
Yeah.
You saw how close they were.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, they did say in China, the death sentence doesn't technically lead to death. It can be later commuted into life of prison, depending on the severity. Because when we were listening to that, and I was like, death, and granted, 175 people died because of incompetence and greed and cutting corners. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be punished. It's just like that to me was like death sentence. Like I don't know why that didn't. I don't know, because it's like so many people were involved. It's not like they purposely like committed a genocide or like they went out and murdered all these people. It was, they cut corners. They, you know, were corrupt. They did the bad things. They stored the chemicals, and they were negligent. I don't know.
I also feel like death sentence is like, for America, that's kind of like normalized. But when you hear of other countries doing, you're like, whoa. You know what I mean?
No, because China does death sentencing a lot, but it makes sense now because they don't like
actually do death sentence.
Right. It's like life in prison. But yeah, in the aftermath of the incident, the government did tighten up on regulations, specifically requiring anybody holding the dangerous chemicals to notify local authorities of quantities and locations. But
why is there a but?
These rules were rescinded less than 2 years later because they were seen as unnecessary red tape.
What? No, unnecessary? How is it unnecessary? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Guys, I got like it was like 90% of all this information is from Deadly Engineering. It is on Discovery Plus. It was episode 9 called Fireball from Hell. It's really informational. I didn't include everything, obviously, so you can go watch it. But it was like, it's not a cool show. It's a really humbling show.
Yeah.
But how they ended it really kind of hit home. So one of the quotes was that all accidents are preventable. It is perfectly possible to handle hazardous chemicals safely. However, in this case, literally every single rule of safe storage and handling of chemicals were violated. So
frustrating.
That's the story of the 2015 Tianjin explosion.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Wow.
Some cutting corners.
All to make a quick buck.
Like, screw y'all. Okay. So that's it for our episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Guys, if you like the podcast, please like and subscribe to us because we love seeing new subscribers. It makes us so happy. And leave a comment on YouTube if you like what we're doing. If you want us to do a specific topic or anything, let us know. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Our usernames are TTATA Podcast. And that's where we post our updates and when our episodes go live and all that good stuff. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys so much. And next week, we're going to be doing true crime. I'm so excited. I have so many.
Oh, God.
Have you seen my topic?
Yeah.
Like, literally, I have 4 for true crime so far. And, like, I still have more. Like, I have so many. I don't know why I'm like this. Anyway, with that, we're going to leave you with this inspirational quote.
If people are doubting how far you can go so far that you can't hear them anymore. From Michelle Ruiz.
Oh my gosh, I like that one so much.
I really liked that.
That's really good. Go far enough so where you can't hear them. Hell yeah. Do that. Because F them haters.
Yes.
All right. I think that's it.
That's it.
Bye, guys.
Bye.